Hey everybody, welcome to another Thursday night Sports Tonight. I'm Scott Pennyman here with my guy Brett Gilbert. What's going on, Brett?
Nothing much. Ready to do it. Round 3 of us this week?
Yeah, man. It was round 2, round 3. I don't know. I lose track, man.
I know. I didn't even know it was Thursday.
We've been throwing so many haymakers, man. I don't even know where we're at right now. All I know is the Braves are about to play their home opener tonight.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about it, man. Where do you expect tonight's home opener against the Padres, the money team, whatever you want to call it?
I was going to say, what are you about to call them?
Yeah.
I'm expecting 6th inning of no-run baseball from the Padres because the Braves have Spencer Strider on the mound, and that guy is a dog. I think he's going to win the Cy Young this year. I've said that on here before.
Yeah, I remember saying that.
I'm expecting him to look as good as he did in Game 1 or Game 2 versus the Nationals all year long. You look at some of the metrics on this guy, and he has elite stuff, elite break, elite speed, and he does it all with 2 pitches. He's got a third, he's got a changeup, but he only throws it about 4% of the time.
Yep.
If he starts throwing that a little more this year, I don't know how anybody hits him. So I'm expecting him to be electric tonight, and I'm sure Braves will get a few runs on the board.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at when you look at the Braves so far. Like I said, they've been getting really good pitching, some timely hitting.
Yeah.
That's normally the recipe to win a lot of games, and that's kind of what they've been so far. So I expect them to keep this going against the Padres tonight. It seems kind of weird, though, right? It seems like normally a home opener is an afternoon game. It seems kind of weird for it to be at night, right?
It does. I mean, being on a Thursday,
Right.
it almost has to be. I'd rather it be 7 o'clock on a Thursday than 1 o'clock on a Thursday.
Right.
And
Well, that's true.
I mean, the Battery would still be packed. I'm sure it'd still be a sellout, but it's going to be a little extra with people off work over there at the Battery tonight. It already is. I've seen pictures, and it is packed.
Right, it's nice. The weather's like almost, man, it's like a summer day outside. I mean,
Yeah,
it's like
it's
80
perfect baseball
temperatures.
weather.
Perfect weather for hopefully the rain stays away. I know we've been kind of checking with the forecast and everything like that. But as far as the Braves are playing, look, I expect them to just continue rolling with how they've been going, especially like you said, Spencer Strider on the mound. I mean, you kind of can't go wrong. I mean, that's the guy you want on the mound in any sort of whatever you want to call it, important game. I know it's just the home openers early in the season, but those home openers are always important games. I look for them to keep that going. The bats have been, like I said,
Everything's been electric.
The bats have been exactly where you want them. Everybody through up and down that lineup has pretty much played the way you would expect. I look for them to keep it rolling. Like I said, my prediction to start, I keep hitting on it, was 110 wins. So all these wins count.
Hey, they're on pace for, what did we say yesterday? 161-1.
161-1.
So they're well ahead of your prediction pace. I guess the one person you could want to see a little more from would be Sean Murphy.
Yeah.
I think he finally got a hit the other night, but he hasn't. He hasn't even been the best catcher on the team because Travis d'Arnaud's been knocking the skin off the ball. But he hasn't looked like the guy that Braves fans were hoping for. It's early. I'm sure he'll get there. This would be a great night for him to go ahead and, get a few doubles, get a few balls between the gaps, and show the Braves why they spent up to go get him.
He's been scuffing a little bit, right? I mean, but like we say, April, sometimes it takes guys a little bit to get their momentum going throughout
Especially
the season.
on a new team.
Right, new team, new city, just trying to get acquaintance, everything around you, and I think sometimes when you're with a new team, you have a tendency to try to sort of want to prove to the guys around you that you are who they said you are.
Yeah.
And sometimes you tend to press a little bit. And I think maybe that's what he's doing right about now at this point in the season. But I think as things sort of settle down, as we get moving through April, through May, I think he'll settle down and he'll blend in with his new teammates and he'll be just fine.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Somebody who hasn't needed any help getting a hot start this year is Austin Riley.
Oh, yeah.
He's already got 3 homers on the year, batting .267, got a 900 OPS. And he's going to be here for a while because the Braves have him signed through 2033. They have a league option in 2032 if they want to cut him, 9 years from now. We'll see. But they have their next chipper, their next Freddie, however you want to look at it. He's going to be here for the long haul.
For sure.
And he wrote a Players Tribune article today before the home opener. I got a snippet pulled up from it here. If you haven't read it, you should go read the whole thing because it's.
No, I definitely did. I definitely, I think the part that really stuck out to me most when I read it was him. It seemed like it was a lot of remorse for what happened last season. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, he just seems like that kind of guy that, the season before in the playoff run, he played fine when they won the World Series and everything. Last year when they got knocked off by the Phillies, everybody was kind of cold. Nobody really played well. But he seemed to really take it personal. He was really down about how he played. He went 1 for 15 in that series against the Phillies last year. So he seemed to really take it personal headed into the offseason, and it still seems to be on his mind even today.
Yeah. That's how he opened the article. talking about how, it was a great season, and then they kind of got punched in the mouth by the Phils and put out.
They did.
Like you said, he was hard on it. But the part that I liked was he said, at some point in the offseason, he said, so how are you going to respond? Like, what's next? So, I mean, that's what you want from a leader in your clubhouse, a guy that you signed for 10 years, that when he goes through some adversity, you can feel bad about yourself for a little bit, but then you got to turn the corner and say, all right, like, how do we get out of this? How do we improve? Because the Braves want to be back there. They're probably going to be back there.
Right.
And how do we, take that next step this year? And it sounds like that's what he spent the offseason thinking about and working on. And I would have to imagine when the Braves make the postseason this year, he's going to do better than 1 for 15.
Yeah, I mean, I think so too, and I think his mentality kind of sums up the mentality of the entire team. I think how Austin Riley feels right now about last season is probably how the entire team feels heading into this season. It seems like they approach this season pretty much as unfinished business, and I think that's just the way that they've approached things. I think they have a sour taste in their mouth from getting hit in the mouth by the Phillies last year. I mean, they hit them with some. That was a Buster Douglas against Mike Tyson last year, man. I mean, I don't think they ever saw that coming. So I think when they ate those punches in the playoffs last year, that rubbed them the wrong way. That made them pretty sour. So I think they're bringing a lot of that momentum into this season, and I think we're seeing a lot of that to start the season. Yeah,
I think so. I think they got a chip on their shoulder, because it's one thing if you go all the way to the World Series like the Phillies did and then get put out. Obviously, you want to get back there, but it's like, okay, we had a pretty good offseason, finished as the second best team. When you're arguably the favorite, or the second favorite, I think, last year to win the NL.
Yeah, they were rolling.
And then you first round get put out by a wild card who also happens to be your division rival. It's tough. I can't think of a tougher way to go out than maybe getting put out by the Mets.
Yeah, I mean, they were rolling, man. They were rolling, and then they were rolling down the street. They were rolling down 85, man, and all of a sudden they hit a pothole. I mean, that's kind of what happened last year against the Phillies, man. A giant-sized pothole is kind of what they ran into last year. So I think, when you get beat out the playoffs like that, it does leave a sour taste in your mouth. And I think, like I said, the way Austin Riley, and look, he went 1 for 15 too. I mean, I think when you go 1 for 15 in any series, in any playoff series, you want your get-backs. You want to be able to get back there and redeem yourself. And I think that's his mentality now, and I think that's why he's starting off this season so hot.
Yeah, he's been hot. And before we move on, I did want to read this snippet from his article because he posted it before the home opener, and he kind of talks about playing at home in Atlanta at Truist.
Yeah.
He says, quote, "But my favorite part about it is our crowd. Braves country and that pop you hear of the fans at the park. I mean, that level of noise at Truist, I can't even fully describe it to you. I was on second base at the time." He's talking about Adam Duvall's grand slam in Game 5 the year they won the World Series. He said, "I was on second base at the time, and I just remember looking around third and looking at Wash, and I kid you not, it was like he was vibrating, like there was an earthquake or something." And he goes on to say how him and Dansby, how he's going to miss Dansby, and him and Dansby would always talk about how they wish they could have won the World Series at home because the battery would have fallen apart from the partying. But it was kind of just a love letter to Atlanta from there on, and to Braves fans specifically, and how much he loves playing at Truist. And I think both sides are very, very happy to have the next 10 years gone ahead and locked up. It sounds like both sides are, pretty happy with that deal.
Yeah, for sure. And he's right. Like I said, he's an awesome player, and he's right about playing at Truist. I mean, just I know when I came to Atlanta, that's just number one thing I saw is just, I came from a place where baseball does not come in number one in Ohio, in the Cleveland area. And the Guardians/Indians do not draw. I was amazed that many people still had that sort of energy for baseball, just coming up around there and just being inside that park. It made me feel like it was the mid-'90s and I was a kid again, just because during that time, I remember going to baseball games with the Indians back then, and the crowd was so crazy. And so going out to Truist now, it reminds me back of that. It reminds me of just that energy in the building when they, just for every hit, every game is just like crazy. So, I mean, when you're in a great city like Atlanta and you're able to play baseball and be as good of a player as him, and he signed for over $200 million. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's a very happy man for sure.
Yeah, and the Braves organization has just done such a good job of building that battery around it, and really, they didn't need help getting people in the ballpark, but inviting even more people, a lot of young people, more fans into the sport.
For sure.
I've been to Wrigley in Chicago. I've been to Busch Stadium in St. Louis, and they're, people consider those like baseball towns, and Atlanta's definitely up there. I mean, Atlanta is a baseball town, baseball first. Doesn't matter if the team's, got 110 wins or if they're fighting to be 500. The games are going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think that's pretty dope, man. like I say, just being in Ohio, I kind of thought I didn't think it felt like baseball was dead, but it just really kind of felt like,
an afterthought.
They're at the bottom of the attendance. I was there. I mean, they were getting like 10, 15,000 a night. I mean, that's what it kind of felt like, especially this time of year when it was cold. They were getting between 10 and 15,000.
Yeah.
But Atlanta, like you said, is one of those cities where baseball is alive and kicking, and it's really sort of rejuvenated my enthusiasm for the sport, honestly.
Yeah, no, it'll do that.
Yeah.
Somebody that might need a little bit of more enthusiasm, the Hawks.
Oh, boy.
Which, hey, this is how you get it. 33-game win streak.
Oh boy.
I know you have some things to say, but before you go in, let me set this up for you. The Hawks finally put an end to an NBA record streak they were on. They had played in 33 straight games within one game of 500.
Oh boy.
So either they were one game above 500, at 500, or one game below 500, and they stayed right there in that mediocre zone for 33 straight games. That's an all-time NBA record. The previous record was, I believe it was the Pelicans. It was 24 games. So they have set an unprecedented level of mediocrity.
Right.
But now they've won 3 in a row, so...
Yeah, look, I mean...
I'm just saying.
Like I've said about them the whole year.
Time.
Well, I guess the part where you're most positive about things is the fact that they're maybe getting hot at the right time.
Yeah.
So this is kind of when you want to start playing your best basketball. Now, the bad part for them is that they're going to be in the play-in. So if you win the play-in tournament, you're going to either have to see Milwaukee or Boston in the first round. And outside of a major injury to Giannis or Jason Tatum, which I don't hope that there's a major injury, okay? I'm not calling for a major injury, but I'm saying those things do happen sometimes come playoff time. To me, that's the only way that I believe the Hawks advance out of the first round. But if everyone is healthy on both sides, if all the stars are healthy, I don't see the Hawks getting any more than 2 games from either one of those teams.
I agree. I look at this and I think there's a small part of me that thinks maybe the Quinn Snyder effect is taking over here. Maybe these guys are starting to roll a little bit, starting to get some confidence right at the right time. But then you look at who the 3 wins came against. The Mavericks, who are just floundering right now. The Chicago Bulls, who, they're fine. They're 4 games under 500. Yeah. And the Wizards, who have been pretty pitiful all year. So not the most impressive wins. I mean, you can only beat the teams in front of you, so you can't fault them for beating those teams.
No, yeah.
But their next 2 games against Philadelphia, probably the hottest team in the league, got the favorite to win MVP,
right.
And then the Boston Celtics in Boston to end the year. If they win both of those, I'm in. I'm totally in. If starters aren't being rested.
Right.
Even if they go into Philly and look good against Philly, get a win against Philly. I don't know. That's a different looking team.
Well, I think where they may have a little bit of luck at is I think both of those teams are kind of locked into their spots right now. Like I think Philly is locked into that 3rd spot. I think Boston they're really close right now. I know Milwaukee clinched the top spot yesterday.
Let's see.
So I think Boston and Philly are kind of locked into their spots. So I think, especially with Philly, I think it's a really good chance that Embiid is probably going to sit. James Harden's probably going to sit. Those guys a little older, getting a little older and kind of injury prone. So I think Philly may sit guys, and I think Boston may sit guys. So I think that at least leaves the door open for them to win those games. So I think right now, I don't care who's on the floor. You just need as many wins as you can possibly keep that momentum rolling so that you can hit the play-in game on the ground running and just get those wins and get into the playoffs.
Yeah, and you're probably right. I'm looking at the standings now. I don't think I know Boston can't move, and it doesn't look like the Phillies. The Sixers can't either.
Right.
But even if it's mostly backups or their starters just play a quarter or something, even just getting those wins under your belt as a team and having the confidence of going into the playoffs, saying, "Hey, we've won 5 in a row."
Right.
Like we can do, and a play-in game if they get into the play-ins. If they manage to win that, or they will be in the play-ins. If they manage to win that, then I don't know, a little confidence. I'm still not expecting much, but maybe enough to, force a Game 6 or something.
But like I said, with the Hawks, this is a team that just 2 years ago found themselves in the Eastern Conference Finals and maybe were a Trae Young injury away from getting to the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
So this is a team, I think, when it comes to confidence, I think they feel like, and I've heard John Collins say it, I was right next to him when he said it, he believes that this team, man for man, can go toe-to-toe with any team in the NBA.
Then why haven't they?
So I think that, when you look at it man for man, talent for talent, Trae Young's a very talented player. DeJounte Murray's an all-star player. John Collins is a really good player. Capella, he's been on some really good teams throughout the years. So, I think man for man, the Hawks can play with anybody in the NBA, but there's not a piece of evidence that you can point to from the last season or two that would lead you to believe that they're going to be able to upset either Boston or Milwaukee. It just doesn't. They haven't shown that they have the ability to be able to have the focus to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's all we can say on that, really.
Yeah.
Moving on, Masters underway, just a few hours east. Is it east? I'm new to Georgia. I'm sorry.
I got it, man. You know what? My fourth grade social studies teacher is going to be so upset right now because I should really know that for certain.
I am 90% sure it is east of Atlanta. I'm getting a nod over here from Ellie.
My third grade social studies teacher is going to be so disappointed.
Hey, I'm new here. I have an excuse.
I know Miss Kapler watches my shows too. Please don't be disappointed. I'm sorry.
But yeah, just a few hours east of here. The Masters getting underway. Nice. Round 1 today. I am not the golf guy on here, but Scott, you know a little bit more than me. Tiger's back. How's he looking?
Look, man, hey, let's be real. These tournaments are way more fun when Tiger Woods is a part of them and going strong. Today he wasn't really going strong, right? I mean, he shot a 74. He's +2. So he's not really, I wouldn't say going strong right now. So I think that, the hope for him being a part of the weekend festivities, I mean, look, I think when he's in it, look across everything. When Tiger Woods is in it on a Sunday wearing that red shirt, wearing that red, looking for blood, the ratings are through the roof.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
honestly,
good for everybody.
I don't ever watch golf. I usually tune into like the last hour of the Masters, just see who puts on the green jacket, and at that point you kind of know.
Right.
But I watch when Tiger's doing it. I at least keep an eye, how's Tiger doing? Because at this point, especially if he's threatening or if he's up there, it's like, oh, Tiger's back. Like he's up there. A few years ago when he won the Masters.
Yeah.
God, what year was that now? Was that 2018?
That was a couple years ago. I think was it 2019, maybe right before the pandemic.
I think so. Yeah. That was crazy. No one expected that, and I tuned in for a lot of that Masters tournament. Probably the most I've ever watched
for sure
of Masters, because I was like, whoa, this is kind of a cool moment in sports, and I think that's how everyone, even non-golf fans, kind of look at Tiger in golf. Love him or hate him. When he's on top, it's a story.
I mean, on a Sunday afternoon, if it's any tournament, especially the Masters, if it's a Sunday afternoon, Tiger's wearing that red, and he has an opportunity, if he's in the hunt and he's running down somebody from behind, you're not going to get any bigger of a TV audience for any sport than you'll get for the Masters.
Speaking of TV audience, it is on Atlanta News First tomorrow and Sunday.
Perfect.
Watch it there.
And that's what I'm saying. Look, if we hope Tiger's in the running. We hope that Tiger's in the running because that's better for everyone involved, including us at CBS, right? That's better for everyone who's involved if he is in the running. I want to see him wearing that red on a Sunday in the hunt, ready to run somebody down.
You really want to see him in red? Is that what you wore?
But that's what he wears on Sundays. He wears that red on Sundays when he's in the hunt. It's like a tiger on the prowl. He's looking for blood. He's looking for red. That's what he wears when he's trying to run people down.
Is that really what he says?
Yeah, that's what he does. That's what he's always worn, man. That red.
I've seen him in the red. I didn't know there was such a symbolic reason.
It's very symbolic. It's a tiger trying to run people down. He's looking for blood. He wants them to bleed. Well, not literally bleed, but
if it happens,
bleed, golf course type blood. He wants to run them down and win.
Just a little.
Right, man. I'm getting fired up just thinking about it. That's Tiger, man. Come on, but that's like Michael Jordan. That's like, every iconic player. You want to see him, and every fan will want to see him too. Trust me. I mean, I've been to these. I've been places before. I covered golf tournaments with Tiger. Everyone just trails behind him. I mean, it's not like, with all due respect to the rest of the golfers who are in the tournament, people love Tiger. It is what it is.
I like how earlier today, when I was putting these topics together, I said, we should probably talk about the Masters, Scott. I don't know a lot about golf. Do you want to talk golf? You're like, yeah, I could talk Tiger for a minute. Like, it's okay. Now you're like the biggest Tiger fan I've ever met.
I've talked about Tiger for like Friday. Look, I mean, that was one of, in covering sports all these years, you have in your mind of different people who you like to interview or different people who you want to see. And Tiger was on my bucket list for forever, because I had never really had a chance to even be anywhere where Tiger was. And then a few years ago, when he was in the Bridgestone tournament back in Ohio, I had the opportunity to be able to cover him and see just everything that goes around with Tiger, and it was just crazy to see. I mean, earlier in my career, I had a chance to interview like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, obviously covered LeBron James, so I got those guys off my bucket list, but Tiger Woods was on there forever, and a couple years ago, I had the opportunity to be able to cover him, so it was awesome.
That's a cool bucket list experience for sure. I can't say that. Scott, what's on your mind tonight?
What's on my age? So did you see Tyreek Hill? Tyreek Hill said that after this current contract, that he's calling it a career, expires in 2025. So that would leave him, 3 more seasons, right?
Yeah, this year, 24 and 25. Yeah, 3 more.
And I think it's it makes sense. Number one, I think he'll be 31 by the time that contract is up. He has $72 million guaranteed on his contract, so he's probably going to make somewhere close to 100 plus. The total contract was 4 years, $120 million.
Yeah.
So I think after that contract, if he will have made $120 million from that contract, yeah, I mean, I think it's a good thing to walk away. Tyreek Hill already is a Super Bowl champion. Yep. So if you've already pocketed $150, $160 million over your career, I think that's the new trend. I think a lot of these guys now in professional football are just look at Ali Marpet down with the Buccaneers a few years ago. He won a Super Bowl down there, was a Pro Bowl player, walked away at the age of 27. I think a lot of these players, with what we know medically as far as pro football now, as far as concussions and long-term bodily injuries, I think guys have the mentality of, let me get my money and let me get out.
Yeah, I agree completely. I don't think this is a move we would have seen 10 or 15 years ago.
No.
But like you said, guys understand the toll on their bodies now. More former players are coming out saying, I wish my coaches had, give me a few days off in practice or use me a bit less. I wish I would have taken a little bit better care of my body now because now my knees, are jello. Now it hurts every morning when I get out of bed.
Right.
And like you said, if you're Tyreek, what's left to accomplish? I mean, you've done everything. If he retired today, and when he says he's going to do it in 3 more years, probably a Hall of Famer, right?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, just when
I'm trying to look up his stats here, but I
think he's already nearing or close to the 10,000 yard mark, which is kind of like a magic number for wide receivers. Now, look, it is hard to make the Hall of Fame this day and age as a wide receiver, just for the simple fact that it is so much more of a passing league now, right? And there's a lot of receivers who've put up a lot of numbers over the last 15 to 20 years since the NFL has changed. It's become more of a passing dominated league, so it's really hard to tell who's really good or who the really dominant players are because a lot of receivers have a lot of big time stats. So it's really hard for me to say for sure whether Tyreek Hill is a Hall of Fame player, but I think when you have a Super Bowl on your list, when you've made as many Pro Bowls as he's made and all those All-Pro teams and everything like that, I think he has a good chance as maybe any receiver playing now to be a Hall of Famer, but I wouldn't say a total lock.
Yeah, well, I think in 3 years we probably could, barring any catastrophic injury. I'm looking at his stats now. He does have 8,300, just over 8,300 career receiving yards.
That's a lot.
Yeah, he's 96th all time receiving. I'm trying to see some.
So 3 more seasons, if he's getting between 12 and 1,500 yards per year, that'll probably be somewhere over 12,000 or so.
Right around, yeah.
And that puts him in the Hall of Fame conversation. And I mean, And look, he's a big play guy. So, I mean, he could have a 1,600 yard receiving season just because he's such an explosive player. Playing with Tua, who had a really good year last year. If Tua can stay healthy, Tua has proved he can get him the ball. Yeah, I mean, he could have a really successful next 3 years. He's going to bank a whole lot more money over the next 3 years. And then he says he wants to get on the business side of football. So he's going to make more money from football.
That's smart. I'm looking here. I'm going down a rabbit hole. This is super interesting. So if he got to about 1,200 yards, he's in Hall of Fame company. I'm looking at guys he'd be ahead of. Calvin Johnson, I mean, he hung it up early, but still. Calvin Johnson ahead of Antonio Gates. I know it's a tight end, but still.
Yeah.
Michael Irvin, just behind Derek Mason, Titans great, just behind Hines Ward, just behind Antonio Brown. Or actually, if he got to 12,500, he'd be ahead of Antonio Brown, Brandon Marshall, he'd be close to where Julio Jones is now. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a Hall of Famer. Super Bowl ring on top of that.
But just think of someone like Steve Smith, who had a great career with the Carolina Panthers and the Baltimore Ravens. His numbers are through the roof, and I don't even think he's been a finalist last couple of years. I think maybe this past year he was maybe a finalist for the Hall of Fame ballot, but he's had trouble kind of getting through. They kind of make wide receivers wait,
But I will say that I think the difference there is Steve Smith played a long career, and he was always a great receiver.
He did.
But was he ever the best, the stud, the highest paid, absolute best receiver in the league?
I don't know, but I know Duke could fight, man.
He could. He's a great receiver. I'm not trying to take that away from him, and he probably should go to the Hall of Fame. But I think if you're considering their peak in the argument, not just longevity, but peak, Tyreek Hill's peak is higher than I would think any other player in the NFL today.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you think about the production that Tyreek Hill has had, I think you start talking about the names like Terrell Owens and some of those guys.
Yeah.
Now, look, he has been fortunate. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. He's been fortunate to have some pretty good quarterbacks throwing the ball too.
Great quarterback, great coach.
Right. I mean, he spent a lot of his career with Patrick Mahomes up in Kansas City, and now Tua is a really good quarterback too when he's healthy. So yeah, I mean, I think when you look at those, but look, I mean, that Super Bowl ring is going to help too. I think that helps you when you start talking about Hall of Fame consideration. But if he puts up really beefy numbers over the next 3 years, I think we will be talking about Tyreek Hill in the same breath as a lot of guys from his era who will get into Canton one day. We'll see.
Yeah, I agree.
What's on your mind?
I was about to say, I guess I should say what's on my next.
Yeah, man.
I mean, if I'm being honest, it's baseball, but I feel like I can't do that 3 nights in a row. So I'll say, let's talk NFL draft for just a second.
Okay.
I am so sick of these mock drafts from experts that come out. You see more and more of them the closer you get to draft time that suddenly have these, third, fourth quarterbacks climbing up and going to the Panthers at 1. I've seen Levis going to the Panthers at 1. Mm-hmm. I've seen, Stroud, of course. I think that's who we all kind of expect to go. I've seen that they're going to take Bryce, and then the Texans are going to trade down. I've seen that the Panthers are just going to take Anthony Richardson, a project QB, at number 1. Why does this happen every year? It feels like every year, the closer we get to draft time, there's a guy or 2 guys that suddenly, for some reason, all these rumors start coming out that, I don't know, the Bears might take them at 1. Yeah. I'm trying to think, the Browns might take him at 1, and it never happens. It's always the guy we thought it was going to be.
Why you guys say the Browns might take him at number 1, huh?
I was trying to think of teams that have drafted
why?
Number
because the Browns draft 1 a lot that way?
Probably more than anyone else.
No, I get what you're saying. I think what happens, though, this time of year, number 1, you'll hear a lot of rumors being thrown out there because, teams will be, they'll whisper to somebody. I've been to the combine before. Teams will whisper to somebody, hey, we're thinking about this guy, and then everyone, they'll kind of go with it. So a lot of what you hear this time of year, you can't really believe it, But yeah, I think a lot of it you can believe because, let's be real, quarterback – there's 2 types of teams in the NFL, teams that have a quarterback and teams that don't. So if you're one of those teams that don't have a quarterback, you're really just spinning your wheels. You have no idea where you're going. I think that's what pushes some of these guys up the draft board. Guys like Hendon Hooker, I've heard his name is maybe being a first-round pick now, even despite his injury. Guys like Anthony Richardson, I think we see those guys move up the draft board because everybody needs a quarterback. If you don't have one, you need one, right? Yeah. So I think that position is so important that you're going to see guys who maybe didn't perform to a level which you would have thought they would have been first-round picks during their college season, but they're going to be propelled up because there's going to be teams who need quarterbacks, and they're going to have coaches on their team that are going to say, yeah, maybe this guy had a week like Anthony Richardson. He was really raw. He's a guy who you look at his raw skills and go, you know what? If we put the right coaching with this guy, he can be really good. So I think a lot of teams talk themselves into a lot of these prospects this time of year, and I think more times than not, it goes bad.
I was going to say, they can talk themselves into Will Levis all they want. Right. I'm not buying.
Yeah,
I'm not buying.
I'm not a Will Levis guy either. I've talked about him before on the show. Even during the season when I saw him play, I never really bought him being a first-round pick at quarterback, but whatever. Look, it's been great again on a Thursday night, Brett.
It's fun, man.
I'm feeling like we're having a good time when we do these shows together.
Yeah, so I feel like we're developing a chemistry.
That has been a
little Tua Tyreek going on.
Well, look, I never was really good at any chemistry in high school, so I might as well get some good.
Or geography.
Be good at chemistry now, or geography, right? So that's sports tonight. For Scott Pennyman, Brett. We'll see you tomorrow.
Have a good night, guys.
Good night.